The dust hung in the air like a veil over the narrow stretch of road that led into San Aurelio, a forgotten town somewhere between the cracked deserts of Sonora and the humid lowlands that stretched toward the coast. People said the town lived in the shadow of two giants, Los Hios del Monte, a cartel known for brutal efficiency, and La Gargola, a newer but savagely ambitious syndicate that rose out of nowhere like a snake from the underbrush. For years, San Aurelio had managed to survive between them, trading silence and fear for an uneasy peace. But peace was something that never lasted long in places where men carried guns more often than hope. Elena Morales never imagined her family would be the thread that snapped whatever fragile truce remained. She stood on the porch of their modest adobe home, staring at the horizon where a line of black SUVs moved like beetles in formation, raising a thin trail of dust behind them. Her breath caught as she realized they weren't passing through. They were slowing, turning, coming down her road. Her husband, Rafael, stepped out beside her, wiping grease from his hands. He'd been fixing the neighbor's old truck since morning, and the look he gave her said everything before she even asked. "They're coming here," Elena whispered. Rafael nodded once, jaw tightening. "Inside. Get the kids." But it was already too late. The SUVs rolled to a stop in front of their fence, engines rumbling like distant thunder. The back door of the lead vehicle opened, and out stepped a man whose presence alone seemed to drain the color from the world around him. Antonio Salazar, second in command of Los Hios del Monte. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, and a reputation whispered with the same fear people reserved for curses. "Elena," he greeted, as if they were old friends meeting at church instead of a cartel lieutenant arriving uninvited to their home. "Rafael." Neither answered. It didn't matter. He wasn't here for courtesy. Antonio's gaze shifted past them, toward the worn front door. "Where is he?" Rafael stiffened. "We don't have who you're looking for." Antonio chuckled softly, a sound colder than the steel he carried. "You do. Maybe not willingly. But someone in your household helped a man who does not deserve your kindness. A man who cost my organization money and blood." Elena felt something fracture inside her. Only one person could have drawn such attention, her younger brother, Mateo. Always in trouble, always promising to straighten out, always dragging shadows behind him like chains he couldn't break. "We haven't seen him," she lied. Antonio stepped closer, close enough she could smell the faint cologne beneath the desert heat. "You're a mother, Elena, a good one, so I will ask only once more." His eyes flicked toward the window where her daughter, Lucia, barely 9, peeked out. "Where is Mateo?" Rafael stepped between them. "We don't know. And even if we did." Antonio didn't let him finish. The lieutenant raised a hand, and instantly the other SUV doors opened. 6 men stepped out, weapons drawn but lowered, waiting for a single command. "Search the house," Antonio said. Elena lunged forward. "No, my children. Don't make this harder," Antonio murmured. But fate had already decided to twist the knife deeper. Because at that moment, from behind the house, from the direction of the old shed, came a noise. A shuffle. A breath. Something small but unmistakable. Antonio's head turned. Slowly, almost lazily, a predator catching the scent of prey. Rafael swore under his breath and moved, but not fast enough to stop the men pushing past him toward the shed. Elena felt her heartbeat slam against her ribs with every step they took. One of the gunmen reached the shed door, swung it open, and there, crouched behind a pile of scrap metal, trembling and pale, was Mateo. Antonio's smile spread like a crack in glass. "Ah, there you are." Elena's world collapsed. "Bring him," Antonio said. Mateo struggled. "Elena, please, don't let them. Rafa, please." His voice cracked. He was no criminal mastermind, just a desperate boy who made the wrong choices in a world that punished mistakes with bullets. Rafael grabbed one of the gunmen, but another struck him across the face with the butt of his rifle, dropping him to the ground. Elena screamed for them to stop, but Antonio paid no attention. His men dragged Mateo toward the SUV. That was when Lucia burst through the door, barefoot, hair wild, eyes red from crying. "Leave my mama alone," she shouted, running straight toward Antonio. Time froze. Antonio raised his hand. The gunman nearest to him lifted his weapon. "No!" Elena screamed. But the shot came anyway. Not at Lucia. Not at Rafael. Not at Elena. At Mateo. One clean bullet to the head. Efficient. Final. Antonio wiped a speck of dust from his sleeve. "Now you are no longer harboring a fugitive," he said calmly. "But understand this Morales family. You intervened. You tried to protect him. So now you owe us." He nodded to his men, who returned to their SUVs like a storm retreating after leaving devastation in its wake. "But, owe you what?" Rafael choked out. Antonio paused at his car door. "A favor, and when we need it, you will know." The engines roared to life. The SUVs drove away. Elena fell to her knees beside her brother's body, sobbing so violently she couldn't breathe. Rafael knelt beside her, trembling, blood trickling from his cheek. Lucia clung to them both, crying silently. San Aurelio returned to its quiet, dusty stillness. But the Morales family no longer lived in the space between two cartels. They had just become owned by one. And in a place where debts were paid in blood, their nightmare was only beginning. Night settled over San Aurelio like a morning shroud, thick and suffocating. The streets emptied early, as they always did after cartel business touched the air. Nobody came to check on the Morales family. Nobody brought food, prayers, or condolences. In towns like this, grief was endured alone. To involve yourself in another's pain was to volunteer your name for the next mass grave. Elena sat at the kitchen table long after darkness swallowed the house, her hands wrapped around a cup of cold coffee she hadn't touched. The house felt wrong. Too silent, too open, like the walls themselves were listening. Her brother's blood still stained the back of her blouse, but she couldn't bring herself to change. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Mateo's face at the moment the bullet struck, saw the way his knees buckled, saw the dust rise from the ground around him like smoke. Rafael moved quietly behind her, limping slightly from the blow he'd taken. He wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Nothing he could say would reach where she had fallen inside herself. Lucia slept in their room, clutching her stuffed toy rabbit, its fur matted with dried tears. Children understood more than adults believed. Trauma had a way of finding its own path into small hearts. Rafael finally broke the silence. "We'll leave," he said softly. "Tomorrow, before sunrise. We pack what we can, take the truck and go north. We'll find work, somewhere safe, somewhere the cartels don't reach." Elena stared at the shadows on the kitchen wall. "They'll follow. We'll disappear." "You can't disappear from people like them." Rafael knelt beside her chair, his eyes searching hers. "Elena, if we stay, they'll use us. And once we serve our purpose, they'll—" He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Elena looked down at her hands, trembling where they held the forgotten cup. She knew he was right. They had become a liability, a resource, a property. Mateo's death wasn't the end. It was the prologue. "We leave before dawn," she whispered. But leaving San Aurelio was never simple. There were eyes on every road, informants in every gas station, and loyalty to cartels carved into the bones of the land. Even the stray dogs seemed to know who owned what territory. As they spoke, a soft tapping rang at the side door. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks. A pattern every local recognized. Rafael tensed. "Police!" "No," Elena whispered. "Police don't knock like that." He reached for the kitchen drawer where an old revolver lay hidden. It wasn't much. The bullets were mismatched, and one chamber had a dent. But a man still felt braver when holding steel. He approached the door cautiously. "Who's there?" It's me." The voice was shaky, uncertain. Rafael opened the door a crack. Standing beneath the flickering porch light was Tomas Ortega, their neighbor. A man in his 60s who'd lived through too much and trusted too little. His eyes darted over his shoulder as though expecting shadows to peel away from the street and attack. "Let me in," he hissed. Raphael hesitated, then pulled him inside. Tomas moved quickly, shutting the door and drawing the curtain. "They're watching your house," he said breathlessly. Elena stiffened. "Who?" "Both sides." Raphael frowned. "Both?" Tomas nodded. Sweat beaded across his forehead. "Los Hios del Monte, they were just the first. Someone saw their SUVs leaving town. Word spreads fast. And when La Gargola hears that a family caught the attention of their rivals..." He swallowed hard. "They come to ask why. They come to ask what you told them. And sometimes they don't ask at all." Elena felt the room tilt. "Why would La Gargola care about us?" Tomas looked at her with a mixture of pity and dread. "Because your brother wasn't just hiding from Los Hios." The coffee cup slipped from Elena's hands and shattered on the floor. "What do you mean?" Raphael asked. "Mateo. He wasn't running because he owed money or stole a car or got into a fight." Tomas's voice dropped lower, as though the walls themselves could be listening. "He was carrying something. Something he took from La Gargola." Elena's breath froze. "What?" Tomas shook his head. "I don't know exactly, but it was important. Important enough that both cartels were looking for him. And now they believe you know where it is." Elena couldn't speak. She felt the cold tendrils of fear wrap around her throat. Raphael finally asked, "Why tell us this?" Tomas looked away, ashamed. "Because my nephew, he used to run errands for La Gargola. Before he disappeared." His voice cracked. "I didn't help him. I was too afraid. I can't. Not again." Silence. Then he said something that made Elena's heart stop. "They'll come tonight." Raphael stood immediately. "Then we have to leave now." Tomas caught his arm. "You won't make it past the main road. They're already watching the highway." His voice trembled. "There's only one way out. Through the old canyon trail. It's narrow, dangerous, and half the road has crumbled. But nobody patrols it. No one even remembers it exists." Elena felt hope stir painfully in her chest. "We can take the truck?" Tomas shook his head. "Not the whole way. The last mile is on foot." Raphael cursed softly. "Lucia can't walk that." "I'll carry her," Elena whispered. Raphael looked at her. In her eyes he saw something fierce. Pain sharpened into resolve. Tomas stepped back toward the door. "Pack only what you need. Leave in 10 minutes. I'll go ahead to make sure the first stretch is clear." Before Raphael could thank him, Tomas held up a hand. "Do not thank me. Just survive." He slipped out into the night. Raphael moved to gather supplies. Elena went to wake Lucia from the small bed where she slept curled like a kitten. When Lucia's eyes blinked open, she whispered, "Are we going somewhere?" Elena kissed her forehead. "Yes, mi cielo. Somewhere better." The girl nodded sleepily, trusting completely. If only trust were enough. They moved quickly, water, blankets, a little food, a photograph of Elena and Mateo as children, Lucia's stuffed rabbit, the revolver, nothing more. As they stepped outside into the night, the air felt too still, too watchful. The moon hid behind clouds, as if refusing to illuminate the path of people marked by fate. They made it to the truck without trouble. But as Raphael turned the key and the engine rumbled to life, another engine roared in response. Headlights flared at the end of the street. A black SUV. Then another. And another. Elena's blood turned to ice. "They're here," she whispered. Raphael slammed the truck into gear. From behind them, more engines ignited. "Trapped." Lucia whimpered softly, clutching her rabbit. Raphael pressed harder on the accelerator. "Hold on," he shouted. And the Morales family tore into the darkness, with two cartels converging on them like wolves closing in on wounded prey. The truck shot forward, tires spitting dust and gravel, as Raphael steered them down the narrow road that led out of San Aurelio. Behind them, the black SUVs accelerated like predators catching the scent of wounded prey. Their headlights carved long, sharp shapes across the dark walls of abandoned houses. Doors slammed open. Men shouted. Engines roared. The night, once silent, now throbbed with impending violence. "Keep your head down, Elena," Raphael yelled over the wind. Elena was already pushing Lucia to the floor of the truck, shielding her with her body. "Stay low, mi amor, stay low," she whispered. The truck bounced violently as Raphael veered onto a poorly maintained dirt path. One that hadn't been used in years, one only locals remembered. The main road was suicide. The highway was death. But this path, this narrow, rocky stretch splitting through old farmland, was their only chance. Bullet cracks split the night behind them. Elena flinched as a round shattered the rear window, glass spraying across her hair and shoulders. Lucia whimpered, covering her ears. The stuffed rabbit fell to the floor. Elena grabbed the girl tighter, pulling her behind the seat. "Keep going," she shouted. Raphael didn't need to hear it. He leaned into the wheel, his jaw clenched so hard his muscles trembled. Sweat rolled down the side of his face despite the desert cold. He could feel the truck straining beneath him, begging for mercy as it hit jagged stones and crumbling earth. Another volley of gunfire sliced through the darkness. A tire exploded behind them, one of the SUVs skidding sideways, crashing into an abandoned brick wall. For a moment, there was chaos among their pursuers. Men shouted. Engines revved. Another SUV struggled to avoid the wreck. But Los Hios del Monte weren't the only ones chasing. From the opposite end of the road, blinding headlights cut across the night. La Gargala. It was as if the entire desert had converged on the Morales family. "They can't both be here," Elena whispered in horror. "Not at the same time." "Oh, they can," Raphael muttered. "And we're the prize." He swerved sharply, narrowly missing an old irrigation ditch. A second later, an SUV behind them wasn't so lucky. It dipped into the ditch, flipped, and smashed onto its roof with a metallic shriek. Two down. Too many left. The path narrowed, hemmed in by crumbling stone walls that once marked the boundaries of old ranchland. Ahead, the land sloped upward toward the foothills. The canyon lay beyond, an ancient trail half-eaten by landslides and long forgotten by all but the oldest families. "Raphael," Elena said, voice shaking, "the truck can't take this terrain. We don't have a choice." Another set of headlights appeared behind the first wave reinforcements. More engines. More shouts. The sound surrounded them. They were a cornered family running on borrowed time. Raphael slammed the wheel left, pushing the truck up a steep incline. Rocks spat from under the tires, some rolling down the hill like small avalanches. The engine growled in protest. "Come on! Come on!" Raphael hissed through clenched teeth. "Please!" Below them, the SUV slowed. The incline was too steep, too uneven. Heavy armored vehicles weren't meant for this climb. But men with guns poured out of them anyway, scrambling on foot up the hillside. "Elena," Raphael said. "Hold Lucia. Tight." Elena wrapped her arms around her daughter, whispering prayers she hadn't spoken in a decade. The truck reached the crest barely, then skidded to the other side. Ahead stretched a narrow strip of land between two rising canyon walls. The old trail, dark, dangerous, twisting. A place where the moon didn't reach, where shadows pooled like water. Raphael floored the gas. The truck plunged into the canyon. Behind them, gunmen shouted for flashlights. Boots hammered against loose rock. Men slipped, cursed, grabbed at the earth with clawed desperation. One of the pursuers raised his rifle and fired a wild shot into the canyon. A bullet struck the truck's taillight, sending sparks across the stone walls. But the path curved sharply left, and the canyon swallowed them whole. For a moment, there was quiet. Not safety, but a suffocating stillness. Only the sound of their engine. Only their heavy breaths. Only the fear pounding against the truck's metal skin like a fist. Then, the truck lurched violently. Raphael cursed. "No, no, no, damn it." Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. What happened? The road, part of it's gone. He could barely see. The canyon was too dark. The truck's headlights revealed a jagged edge where the trail had collapsed long ago, leaving only a narrow, terrifyingly thin strip along the right side. "We can't drive this," Elena said, realizing it before Raphael did. "We have to," he snapped, but the truck's front tire slipped off the edge, sending the entire vehicle tilting dangerously toward a sheer drop into black nothingness. Lucia screamed. Elena grabbed her. Raphael fought the wheel with everything he had. But the canyon didn't care about courage. The earth crumbled further under the weight of the truck. And with a sickening, grinding shudder, the vehicle dropped. Raphael shouted, "Out! Out now!" He slammed the door open. Elena pushed Lucia toward the gap between the crumbling road and the wall. Raphael grabbed his daughter and hauled her out as the truck slid another foot. "Elena!" he screamed. She crawled across the seat, glass cutting her palms as she pulled herself toward the open door. Rocks fell into the abyss below like pebbles thrown into an endless ocean. "Give me your hand." Raphael reached for her. She grabbed him, and the truck tilted again. A massive crack split the wooden frame of the old trail. Raphael pulled with everything he had. Elena pushed off the seat with her legs, just as the truck lost its last grip on the earth. Metal shrieked. The vehicle plunged into darkness, while Elena soared forward into Raphael's arms, both of them crashing onto the fragile strip of remaining path. A split second later, the sound of the truck hitting the canyon floor echoed like distant thunder. Silence returned, broken only by Raphael's ragged breathing and Lucia's choked sobs as she clung to her mother. "Elena, are you hurt?" Raphael panted. "No," she whispered, shaking. "But we have to move. They're coming." As if summoned by her words, the sound of voices echoed down the canyon behind them. Flashlights flickered. Men shouted. Metal clanged against rock. They hadn't escaped. They had only changed the battleground. Raphael lifted Lucia into his arms. Elena gripped the revolver with blood-stained fingers, and the Morales family ran deeper into the canyon, while two cartels hunted them like prey in the dark. The canyon swallowed the family in its cold, breathless dark. The walls rose so high on either side that the faint moonlight barely scraped the top edges, leaving the floor of the ravine cast in a blue-black gloom. Elena could hear Raphael's strained breathing as he carried Lucia, and behind it, echoing through the stone corridors, the growing shouts of the men pursuing them. Flashlights bobbed somewhere far behind, thin white beams slicing across the canyon walls like moving scars. "Elena," Raphael whispered, "how many rounds do we have?" She checked the revolver quickly. Her hands trembled, but she forced her fingers to obey. "4. Maybe 5. The last chamber is dented. We can't count on it firing." Raphael's jaw tightened. "Then we save them. Only if they're close enough to touch us." Elena nodded, though fear coiled in her stomach. For bullets, dozens of men. No truck, no backup, no allies. Just cliffs, shadows, and running. They moved quickly but carefully along the narrow trail, which was barely wider than their shoulders in some places. Loose stones clattered under their boots, tumbling into the abyss below. Every sound felt too loud. Every step felt like a gamble. Lucia whispered into Raphael's shoulder, "Papi, are they going to take us?" Raphael kissed the top of her head. "Not while I'm breathing, mi cielo." Elena's chest ached hearing his voice break. The canyon widened slightly, not much, but enough to reveal an old wooden footbridge stretched over a chasm. The boards were gray with rot, some missing entirely. A sign, long fallen, lay half buried in sand and rocks. "El Camino Viejo, unsafe." Raphael stared at it. "If we don't cross, they'll catch us." "If we do cross, it might collapse," Elena murmured. "Then we pray it holds one more time." They reached the beginning of the bridge. Elena tested a board with her foot. It groaned, sagging, splintered under the slightest pressure. "Rafa, I know." Behind them, distant voices echoed again, closer than before. Lucia whimpered. Raphael inhaled deeply. "I'm going first. If it holds me, you follow with Lucia." "No," Elena said sharply. "I'll go first. I'm lighter." But Raphael shook his head. "If it collapses, You and Lucia need each other. He stepped forward. I'll take the risk. Before Elena could argue, Raphael placed his weight on the first board. Creaked, but did not break. He moved carefully, each step deliberate. Elena held her breath as he crossed halfway. Then more. Then reached the other side. Okay, he whispered across the chasm, voice shaking. Come on. Slow. Hold Lucia tight. Elena lifted her daughter into her arms. Wrap your legs around me, mi amor. Don't look down. Lucia buried her face in Elena's neck, trembling. Elena placed one foot on the bridge. A groan echoed through the canyon, long and low. Slow, slow, Raphael whispered urgently. Elena took another step. Another. The board beneath her cracked but didn't fall. Sweat trickled down her spine as she kept her eyes fixed on Raphael's outstretched hand on the opposite side. Every breath felt like an intrusion into the silence. Halfway across, a shout cut through the canyon. A flashlight beam sliced across the darkness behind them. They're here, Elena gasped. Gunfire erupted. Bullets snapped past her, punching splinters from the wood. Elena, run! Raphael yelled. She moved faster, boards shuddering dangerously beneath her weight. Lucia clung to her, whimpering softly. A bullet tore through a plank near her foot, sending a long crack running across the bridge's support beam. Another shot, and another. Elena, jump! Raphael screamed. She lunged forward, throwing her body across the last stretch of the bridge as the boards beneath her gave way. Raphael caught her wrist, pulling her and Lucia onto solid ground just as the bridge collapsed behind them in a roar of snapping wood and falling debris. The canyon filled with dust. From the other side, men shouted in frustration, peering across the broken chasm. Elena lay on the ground, clutching Lucia, her chest rising and falling violently. Raphael collapsed beside them, breath ragged. They had bought a few minutes. No more. They'll find another way around, Raphael said, pushing himself to his feet. We need to keep moving. As the dust settled, Elena spotted something carved into the canyon wall. A barely visible mark, faded but unmistakable. An arrow pointing deeper into the ravine. Rafa, she whispered, touching it. This isn't the trail Tomas told us about. Raphael frowned. Then what is it? Before Elena could answer, a voice came from somewhere ahead. Low, calm, not shouting, not panicked. Don't move. Raphael spun toward the sound, shielding Elena and Lucia. From the shadows of a narrow crevice, a figure stepped into the faint moonlight. A woman, tall, lean, dressed in dark, dust-covered clothing. A rifle slung over her shoulder, a scar running from her temple to her jaw. Her eyes, sharp as broken glass, locked onto them with predatory focus. Elena's breath caught. She knew that face. Everyone in this region did. It was Isabella Reyes, known to the world as La Sombra, the most feared scout and enforcer in Los Rios del Monte. A woman whose name alone made towns fall silent. She was the ghost who saw everything. The shadow that stalked every breach, the whisper that preceded executions. And right now she stood 10 feet from them. Her rifle didn't rise yet, but her posture told Elena this encounter balanced on the edge of a knife. Raphael swallowed. We don't want trouble. Isabella's expression didn't change. She studied them with cold, calculated attention. You're Morales, she said quietly. Not a question, a statement. Elena nodded slowly. We didn't ask for any of this. We don't have whatever Mateo stole. We just want to take our daughter and disappear. Isabella stepped closer, boots crunching the gravel beneath her. You think either Cartel will let you vanish after tonight? Her tone wasn't mocking. It was matter of fact. Raphael braced himself, ready to put his body between this woman and his family. Then Isabella said something none of them expected. I'm not here to bring you in. Elena blinked. What? Isabella lowered her rifle just slightly. I'm here because Mateo contacted me before he died. Elena's heart stopped beating for a second. Raphael stared at her. Lucia held tighter to her mother. Isabella's face remained unreadable as she said the words that would change everything. Your brother trusted only one person, and it wasn't your family. It was me. And he left something behind he wanted you to have. The canyon went absolutely silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. What did he leave? Elena whispered. Isabella reached into her jacket. Her fingers closed around something small. Metal. Cold. Deadly. She pulled it out. A USB drive. Old. Scuffed. But unmistakably important. Raphael exhaled shakily. What's on it? Isabella looked at the Morales family, her expression now carrying something new, something almost like regret. Proof, she said softly, that both cartels want buried. Proof your brother died for. She held out the USB. And if you want to survive the night, you come with me. The canyon echoed with distant shouts. Cartel reinforcements taking a detour, closing in from another path. The Morales family stood frozen between death behind them and a lethal, unpredictable ally in front of them. Elena reached for the USB, and the story of her family's survival took its first irreversible turn. The air inside the cabin felt tight, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Miguel steadied his trembling hands, watching the headlights of the approaching SUV crawl up the mountain path like a slow-moving threat. He didn't know who it was, but in these mountains, anyone driving at night meant trouble. The twins clung to each other. Little Camila hid her face against her brother's shoulder, and Mateo, though only 12, stared at the door with a jaw locked in the same quiet determination as his father. Lucia tightened her grip on the iron skillet in her hand, though they both knew it wouldn't help much if armed men came through that door. Miguel stepped toward the window, lifted the corner of the curtain, and froze. The SUV wasn't alone. 2 more sets of headlights snaked up. The road behind it. Lucia's voice cracked. Miguel? Who is that? He didn't answer at first. The engine noise grew louder, rising like a beast waking from sleep, until the first SUV turned and parked directly in front of their porch. 3 men stepped out, all armed, all moving with the discipline of men who had done this many times before. But then Miguel recognized the man in front. Dios mío, he whispered. It's Vargas. Lucia paled. El Zorro Vargas? Miguel nodded slowly. The same. Vargas, known across the border states as the Fox, wasn't just a cartel lieutenant. He was a ghost, a man who had outlived 3 bosses by being smarter, colder, and more patient than all of them. A man like that didn't make social visits. He knocked hard enough to rattle the frame. Miguel Castillo, he called out, voice calm but echoing. We need to talk. Lucia mouthed, don't open it. But Miguel already knew he had no real choice. Men like Vargas didn't leave. They waited. And waiting always ended badly. He opened the door slowly. Vargas stepped inside, scanning the family with eyes so sharp it felt like he could peel open their secrets. His gaze lingered on the twins, then on Lucia, then finally on Miguel. You have something that belongs to us, Vargas said. Miguel's stomach turned. I don't know what you're talking about. Vargas smiled without warmth. Everyone says that. He motioned to one of his men, who set a small metal briefcase on the table. Miguel didn't look away from Vargas as the locks clicked open. Inside sat a phone, cracked, burned on one side, but intact enough to be recognized. Miguel exhaled shakily. That's not mine. I know, Vargas said. It belonged to my boss's nephew, Tomas, the one who died in that ambush 2 nights ago. Miguel's pulse stopped cold. The ambush, the explosion in the canyon, the screams, the gunfire that had echoed for miles. He hadn't meant to witness it. He had been hunting with Mateo, trying to teach him how to track deer while they still had some semblance of a peaceful life. But instead, he'd seen everything. The convoy hit, the fire, the men running, and the dying boy crawling toward the bushes before collapsing. And yes, Miguel had taken the phone only because the boy had pushed it toward him with his final breath, whispering, "Don't let them find it." Miguel thought he had hidden the truth well. Clearly not well enough. You know what this phone contains? Vargas asked. Miguel didn't answer. Vargas leaned closer, voice low and venom smooth. It contains proof that someone inside our organization ordered Tomas's death. Proof worth killing for. Proof worth burning a family alive for. Lucia clutched the children. Miguel's throat dried. So what do you want from us? I want the full recording. The boy sent the file before he died, but not all of it uploaded to the cloud. 32 seconds are missing, 32 seconds that you saw. Someone else tried to retrieve the device from the body before I arrived, and failed. So tell me. His eyes narrowed, razor sharp. Where is the other phone? Miguel blinked. Other phone. Vargas smiled again. The one Tomas was trying to reach when he died. Miguel's breath caught. Tomas had whispered something else, but Miguel hadn't understood it at the time. Vargas leaned back slightly, letting the silence thicken. You're in the middle now, he said softly. Between my cartel and the traitor who wants us all dead. If you help me, your family lives. If you lie to me... His gaze drifted to the twins. They won't. Lucia gasped. Miguel felt something primal snap inside him. Fear, desperation, and a father's fury swirling like a storm. But before he could respond, a sudden crack echoed outside. A gunshot, then another, then dozens. Vargas's men snapped to their weapons. Vargas stepped back, eyes suddenly sharp with recognition, like he knew exactly which enemy had found him. Get down, he barked. The windows exploded. Glass rained across the room. The cabin shook as bullets tore through the walls. Lucia screamed, dragging the twins to the floor. Miguel lunged toward them, shielding their bodies with his own. Outside, engines roared. Men shouted. Gunfire crackled like wildfire climbing dry timber. Vargas crouched behind the table, muttering, "Damn it, they found us." Miguel choked on dust. Who? Who is attacking us? Vargas reloaded with practiced precision and gave the answer like it was nothing more than a time of day. The traitor, he said. And he doesn't want the truth. He wants everyone with knowledge of that phone dead. Starting with your family. Miguel felt the terror transform into something harder, sharper. He grabbed the hunting rifle behind the door. Then, he growled, "We fight." The gunfire outside swallowed the night, turning the quiet mountain air into a battlefield. Bullets snapped through the wooden walls like angry wasps. Miguel pulled Lucia and the kids behind the overturned couch, shielding them as splinters rained down. Vargas slammed a fresh magazine into his pistol, eyes calculating, cold, alive. They brought more men than I expected, he muttered. Your cabin won't hold. Miguel gritted his teeth. It doesn't have to hold. We just need to survive long enough to get out. Vargas gave a dry laugh. Then we're already dead. Another explosion ripped through the front yard. Close. Too close. The shockwave rattled the windows that hadn't already been shattered. Mateo covered his sister's ears. Lucia whispered prayers under her breath, trembling. Back door. Miguel hissed. Follow me. He grabbed Lucia's arm and made for the kitchen, but Vargas caught his shoulder. Wait! The cartel lieutenant snapped. They'll have men covering the exits. You run out there blind, you die in the first 3 seconds. Miguel jerked his arm free. So what? You want us to sit here and wait to be slaughtered? Vargas didn't blink. I want your family alive, and right now you need me to make that happen. A fresh round of gunfire tore through the east side of the cabin, the noise so violent that Camila screamed and buried her head against her mother's chest. Miguel forced himself to breathe. Fine. Then what's your plan? Vargas jerked his chin toward the small cellar door near the pantry. Under the house. Crawl space. They won't check it until they clear the structure. Lucia shook her head violently. No, Miguel, it's too small, the kids. It's the only chance, Miguel said, voice cracking. Go. Lucia swallowed her fear, then nodded. She pulled the twins toward the cellar door. Miguel lifted the small hatch, revealing the darkness below. Damp earth, cold air, a hollow space hardly big enough for 4 people to breathe, let alone move. Vargas crouched beside them. Get in and stay silent. Miguel hesitated. What about you? Vargas raised his pistol. I'll buy you time. Lucia grabbed Miguel's wrist. No, you're coming with us. But Vargas gave Miguel a look. A silent order, not a request. If you want your family to live, he said, you need me alive. And if I climb down there with you, none of us make it. The truth landed like a blow. Miguel clenched his jaw. Keep them safe, he told Vargas. Vargas gave a curt nod. I will. Gunfire thundered again. Closer now, feet pounding on the porch. No more time. Miguel lowered Lucia and the kids into the crawl space, then climbed down after them. The darkness swallowed them whole. He pulled the wooden panel shut just as the front door burst open upstairs. The roar of gunfire filled the house. Heavy boots stormed across the floorboards above them. Voices shouted in Spanish, angry, frantic. Check the rooms. They were seen here. Kill anything that moves. Lucia pressed both hands over Camila's mouth to keep her from crying. Mateo clung to Miguel, trembling but silent. Then came a different sound, sharp, controlled bursts from Vargas's gun. Screams, bodies hitting the floor. Then, the sudden quiet of someone reloading. In the darkness, Miguel whispered, Please survive, please. But the quiet didn't last. A new voice entered the cabin. Smooth, confident, familiar enough to make Miguel's blood turn to ice. Well, Vargas. Always the stubborn one. Vargas spit something onto the floor. I should have known you'd crawl out from under your rock. Miguel couldn't see the man, but he could hear him clearly, and somehow that was worse. The voice laughed softly. You've caused a lot of trouble chasing that file. A smarter man would have handed it over. I don't work for you, Vargas snapped. No, the man said. You work for a dying empire, one I intend to inherit. And that phone, the boy's proof, belongs to me. Lucia gripped Miguel's arm, understanding now. The traitor was here, in their home. Where is the family? The man asked calmly. Castillo has something I need. Vargas didn't hesitate. Gone. Wrong answer. Shots rang out, 3 in rapid succession. Vargas groaned, stumbled, but didn't fall. You betray your own blood. You think you'll survive this war? The man's voice cooled. I don't survive. I win. Another shot. A body collapsed. Lucia gasped silently, burying her face against Miguel's shoulder. Miguel closed his eyes, fury twisting inside him like barbed wire. More boots entered. Search the house. The children too. Leave no one. They were running out of time. One wrong creak of the floorboards above and the traitor's men would find the cellar door. Miguel looked at Lucia in the dark. She saw the decision forming in his eyes and shook her head violently. Don't. But he had to. His family would die if he didn't move. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Stay silent, he whispered. Before she could stop him, he pushed open the cellar door just an inch, quiet as breath, and slipped out into the kitchen shadows. He wasn't armed. He wasn't trained. He wasn't ready. But he would rather die fighting than let the traitor touch his children. Miguel rose into the dim light of the ruined cabin just as a shadow moved to his right. A gun barrel lifted. Found someone. Miguel lunged. The struggle was violent, fast, desperate. 2 men crashed into the counter, knocking pans and shattered plates across the floor. Miguel fought like someone with nothing left to lose. He got one hand on the man's wrist, forced the gun away, heard the shot tear through the ceiling instead. They slammed into the wall. Miguel wrenched the gun free and fired blindly. The man collapsed, but Miguel wasn't alone. Someone grabbed him from behind, an arm around his throat, cutting off air. He clawed at the forearm, gasping, vision dimming. Another man approached, raising his rifle. Hold him, the gunman said. Boss wants him alive. Miguel thrashed, desperate, choking. Then bang, bang. Both men dropped. Miguel stumbled forward, sucking in air. From behind the overturned table, bleeding heavily, barely standing, Vargas lowered his pistol. Family first, he rasped. I told you. Then his legs buckled. Miguel caught him just before he hit the floor. Vargas, Vargas, stay with me. Vargas coughed blood. Listen, listen, Castillo. He grabbed Miguel's shirt with surprising strength. They didn't come for you. They came for the phone Tomas called. The second phone. It's not yours. It's not mine. But you know the owner. Miguel frowned, confused. Who? Vargas whispered the name. Miguel's heart stopped. No. No, that's impossible. Vargas gripped harder. Find him before they do. He holds the rest of the truth. The front door creaked. Footsteps. A shadow. The traitor himself walked into the kitchen, gun in hand. And he was smiling. The traitor's smile was the kind that didn't reach his eyes. Cold, patient, certain of his victory. He stepped over the bodies on the cabin floor like they were nothing more than debris. Moonlight spilled through the shattered window behind him, outlining his silhouette. Relaxed posture, steady aim, total confidence. Miguel froze, one arm still around Vargas's collapsing body. Lucia and the children were beneath the floorboards. One wrong move and everything would end. The traitor tilted his head with a mock admiration. I have to say, Miguel, I didn't expect you to fight this hard. Hunters from these mountains usually run like rabbits. He smirked. But you have teeth. Miguel slowly rose to his feet, hands visible, heart pounding. You murdered your own men, he said, voice shaking but steady. And the boy, your own family. The traitor shrugged. Family is a liability in business. Vargas coughed blood, struggling to lift his head. You, snake. Oh, Vargas. The traitor sighed. You've always been predictable. Loyal to the wrong people. Loyal to rules. Loyal to tradition. It's why the old guard loves you. And why they're going to die. Miguel forced his breathing to slow. He needed time. Seconds. Anything. But the traitor continued walking toward him, gun never wavering. That phone Tomas called, he said casually. You think the boy trusted you? A stranger? No. He called someone he knew. Someone close. He smiled wider. And that someone is the real reason I'm here. Miguel clenched his fists. I don't know where he is. You will. The traitor lowered his voice. Right now, your only use to me is as bait. Two more gunmen entered the cabin behind him. One had a shotgun. The other held zip ties. Lucia and the children stirred softly beneath the floorboards. Miguel prayed they wouldn't make a sound. The shotgun man nudged Vargas's leg with his boot. He's still breathing. The traitor frowned slightly. Not for long, but we'll take him. He knows too much, and I'd prefer he dies knowing I won. Vargas spit blood at the traitor's shoes. You won't live long enough to enjoy it. For someone dying, the traitor said. You talk too much. He raised his gun at Vargas's head. Miguel acted. He didn't think, didn't plan, didn't hesitate. He reached for the nearest object, Vargas's dropped pistol, and fired twice. The traitor jerked back, not in pain but in surprise, as one bullet grazed his arm. His men reacted instantly. Shotgun fire exploded the wall behind Miguel. He dove behind the kitchen counter as splinters blasted into the air. The traitor shouted, Kill him! Kill him now! Gunfire roared. The floor cracked. Glass shattered. Wood erupted in bursts. Miguel crawled toward the cellar hatch, but froze when he saw the twins' terrified eyes staring up at him through the narrow slits. If the gunmen saw the door, Move in! One of them shouted. Miguel popped up and fired blindly, anything to draw their attention away from the children. The counter behind him exploded under shotgun blasts. He ducked again, heart pounding like a drum in his ears. The traitor's voice cut through the chaos. Corner him. He's unarmed. His family can't be far. Find them. Lucia covered Camila's mouth as the girl trembled violently. Mateo held his mother, tears streaming silently down his face. Miguel fired another shot, forcing the gunmen to scatter. For a moment, just a moment, he bought them time. Then the shotgun man rushed around the counter with brutal speed. Miguel aimed, fired, missed. The gunman slammed the shotgun stock into Miguel's ribs. Pain exploded through his side. Miguel dropped to one knee. The shotgun man raised the barrel to Miguel's face. But before he could pull the trigger, bang! The gunman stumbled, looked confused, dropped his weapon. A second shot followed. He hit the floor dead. Miguel spun around and saw Vargas, barely alive, barely breathing, but still fighting. He had dragged himself halfway across the floor, leaving a trail of blood. With trembling hands, he held a pistol, Miguel's hunting rifle at his back, like a makeshift crutch. Vargas coughed violently, but forced out words shaped by fury alone. "You're not touching his family," the traitor screamed. "Finish them!" His remaining gunmen opened fire. Vargas fired back, both missing wildly. Bullets shattered furniture, ripped through walls, tore into the floor inches from where Lucia hid beneath. Miguel lunged at the distracted gunman. They collided. The rifle fell. The two men crashed into the dining table, sending shards of glass and plates flying. Miguel's hands locked around the gunman's wrist. The man elbowed Miguel across the jaw. Miguel staggered, tasted blood, grabbed a broken chair leg and swung hard. The gunman dropped. Miguel turned. Too late. The traitor had his pistol aimed squarely at Miguel's head. Breathing steadier than any man in this chaos had the right to be, the traitor said, "You should have stayed dead on the floor." Miguel braced for the shot, but a sound drifted faintly from beneath the cabin floor. A child's gasp. The traitor's eyes flicked toward the noise. Lucia's eyes widened in horror. She covered the twins' mouths too late. The traitor smiled. "There they are." He stepped toward the cellar door, raising his gun. Miguel charged. The traitor saw him too late. The two men crashed through the kitchen wall, splintering wood and falling onto the porch in a violent tangle. The gun skidded across the deck. They rolled, fighting, grappling, punching. Miguel slammed the traitor's head into the wooden boards. The traitor kneed Miguel in the stomach. Miguel gasped. The traitor clawed for the fallen gun. Miguel dove and grabbed the traitor's ankle. The traitor kicked him in the jaw. Miguel's world spun. The traitor lifted the gun. A shot blasted into the night, but not at Miguel. A vehicle roared up the driveway. Lights blinding, doors slamming, men shouting with radios. Someone yelled, "Federal police! Drop your weapon!" The traitor froze. Miguel, bleeding and shaking, stared in disbelief as armed officers swarmed the porch. And stepping out of the lead vehicle was a man Miguel recognized instantly. The man Vargas had named. The man Tomas had called as he died. The man the traitor feared most. Miguel whispered the name, disbelieving. "Not you! Not you!" The man stared back, calm, stern, and carrying the weight of 100 unspoken secrets. "Miguel," he said, stepping forward. "We need to talk." The traitor snarled, raising his gun, and officers opened fire, dropping him instantly. Silence. Cold, crushing silence. Then the man turned to Miguel, expression unreadable. "Miguel, your family is no longer safe here, and everything you think you know is only the beginning." The flashing police lights washed the mountainside in violent reds and blues, painting long shadows across the broken cabin. The gunfire had ended, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the battle itself. Smoke drifted from bullet-ridden walls. The cold night wind carried the smell of gunpowder and pine. Miguel could barely stand. His ribs screamed with every breath. Blood ran down his jaw. But none of that mattered, not when he saw the man approaching. Agent Ramiro Delgado, not a cartel member, not a local officer, a federal intelligence operative. Someone who lived in the gray space between governments and cartels, trusted by none, feared by all. Miguel had met him only twice before. Once when Ramiro warned him to move his family deeper into the mountains. Once when Ramiro helped Lucia's cousin disappear from the cartel's reach. Miguel had never known who he truly worked for. Now the answer terrified him. Ramiro's boots stopped inches from Miguel. His eyes swept the cabin, its ruin, its bodies, and settled on Miguel's trembling hands. "You're lucky you're still breathing," he said quietly. Miguel rasped. "Why are you here?" Ramiro didn't answer at first. He just stared, cold, analytical, already calculating the next 10 moves while Miguel struggled to survive the next 5 seconds. Then Ramiro said, "Tomas called me." Miguel swallowed hard. The world tilted slightly, his heartbeat thundering in his ears. "That boy died in my arms," Miguel whispered. He pushed the phone to me. He said not to let them find it." Ramiro nodded. "He trusted me, and he trusted you. He knew you were one of the only people left who hadn't been compromised." Miguel's voice cracked in disbelief. "Compromised? By who?" Ramiro's expression hardened. "The cartel. The police. The army. Everyone. The traitor wasn't acting alone. He was part of a bigger fracture. A quiet civil war inside the cartel." He stepped closer. "And now you're at the center of it." Miguel felt the weight of the night press down on him. "My family. We'll get them," Ramiro said. "Alive." Without another word, he motioned to 2 officers. "Secure the perimeter. No one enters, no one leaves." Then he pointed at the ruined cabin. "And find the family." Miguel tensed. No guns down there. They're hiding." Ramiro lifted a hand, calming him. "Easy. I know." He turned toward the cabin. "Lucia," he called, voice carrying a rare gentleness. "It's Ramiro. You're safe now. Come out slowly." For a moment nothing happened. Then, a faint creak, a small sound, and the cellar hatch opened. Lucia emerged first, dirt on her face, eyes swollen with fear. Camila and Mateo clung to her, trembling, but alive. Lucia saw Miguel and made a sound, not quite a sob, not quite a cry. Something raw. She ran to him. He stumbled into her arms. For a moment the world around them disappeared. Miguel buried his face in her shoulder, shaking. Mateo hugged his father's waist, crying silently. Camila took Miguel's hand with both of hers, like holding it could anchor him back to earth. Ramiro watched the reunion with a tight jaw. He gave them a few seconds, just a few, before he stepped forward again. "We need to leave. Now." Lucia tightened her grip on Miguel. "What is happening? Why is this happening to us?" Ramiro exhaled slowly. Because Tomas wasn't the only one gathering proof. He was part of an internal investigation. Someone high in the cartel was working with the U.S. government to dismantle the organization from the inside. The traitor discovered it. Miguel frowned. "So this is about the recording? The missing 32 seconds?" Ramiro nodded once. "Those 32 seconds reveal the identity of the double agent. They reveal the man who planned to expose the cartel's leadership to international authorities." Lucia's eyes widened. Who was the agent?" Ramiro's gaze darkened. "I was." Miguel's entire body went still. "No," he whispered. "No, that can't be." Ramiro's face stayed unreadable. "Tomas found out. He trusted me. He called me during the ambush because the traitor had discovered my identity. That missing footage contains the traitor's confession. With it, I can collapse the cartel leadership. Without it, the cartel collapses those who get in their way." Miguel felt the ground sway beneath him. "So they came to kill you, and us." "They came," Ramiro said, "to erase every trace of Tomas's investigation. And you, unfortunately, are part of that trace." Lucia put her hand over her mouth. The twins pressed close to Miguel, sensing everything even if they didn't understand. Miguel looked Ramiro dead in the eyes. "What now?" Ramiro nodded to his men. 2 SUVs revved to life. Doors opened. Black uniforms moved like shadows. "Now," Ramiro said, "we disappear your family for the next 48 hours. We get you to a safe location. Then we get the recording. Then we take down the traitor's entire network." Miguel felt something heavy settle into him. Not fear, not shock, but resolve. Lucia squeezed his hand. "Miguel, whatever happens, we stay together." He nodded. Together. But then, a distant rumble. Several officers turned, hands instinctively reaching for their weapons. Ramiro stiffened. "That's not our engine." Headlights appeared on the far ridge. Then another, and another. Convoy, coming fast. Lucia grabbed the twins. Miguel stepped in front of them. Ramiro cursed under his breath. They traced the call. They know I'm here. Miguel whispered. Who is it? Ramiro's eyes narrowed. The other half of the cartel. Lucia's heart stopped. How many? Ramiro watched the headlights multiply. A war's worth. The lead vehicle crested the ridge. Men with rifles stood in the beds of trucks. One lifted a rocket launcher. Ramiro shouted, "Get down!" The night exploded. Fire. Shockwave. Flames. Earth trembling under their feet. The war had officially arrived. And the family had only seconds to survive it. The gunfire that had erupted outside the mayoral palace had died down minutes earlier, but the smoke still curled upward like ghostly fingers. Mateo's ears rang as he pushed himself upright behind the overturned catering table. Dishes shattered around him like frozen echoes of what had been a peaceful afternoon just an hour ago. He blinked dust and sunlight out of his eyes, the world spinning sharp and disoriented. His first thought, before the pain, before the fear, was his family. "Elena?" he called out, voice cracking. "Lucy!" A groan answered him from a few feet away. Elena lay on her side, dazed but conscious, holding her daughter tight with both arms, as if shielding her from the world even in unconsciousness. Lucy's face was buried against her mother's chest, shaking, but alive. Mateo rushed to them and dropped to his knees. "I'm here," he whispered, one hand stroking his daughter's hair, the other gripping Elena's shoulder. "I'm here. I've got you." Elena's eyes fluttered open. "Mateo, what happened?" "What happened?" Public event. A mayoral speech. A sudden explosion at the southeastern gate. Then the crack of rifles, controlled bursts, trained hands. Not random. Not reckless. Cartel message. Before Mateo could answer, heavy boots thudded across the marble toward them. Armed security, no, not security. Tactical gear. Gas masks. Reinforced plates. These weren't government personnel. They belonged to someone else. "Hands where we can see them," one ordered in sharp English, weapon raised. Mateo raised his arms slowly, stepping in front of his family. "We're civilians," he said, keeping his voice steady despite the tremor inside him. "We're just—" "Mateo Cruz?" another interrupted. Something cold slid down Mateo's spine. "Who's asking?" The man exchanged a look with the others. "You're coming with us." Elena's fingers clutched his pant leg. "No," she whispered. "Mateo, no. I'm not going anywhere without my family," Mateo said, jaw tightening. The lead soldier's stance didn't shift, but a faint, cruel smile curled beneath his mask. "You misunderstand. They come too." Lucy whimpered. Mateo's heart thundered. "Who sent you?" The soldier's smile widened. "El Silencio." The name hit like a physical blow. A ghost. A myth. A cartel leader so elusive and so ruthlessly efficient that governments whispered his name only behind sealed doors. No photos. No public sightings. Just a legend stitched together with blood and rumor. Why would El Silencio send men for him? A school administrator. A nobody in the world of guns and power. Unless Mateo's father had been right all along. Before he could respond, another deafening blast erupted from the far hall, closer this time. The windows shattered inward, glass raining like shimmering knives. The soldiers ducked, turning their weapons toward the source. And that was when a separate strike team burst in from the western corridor. Black uniforms, no insignias, moving with lethal precision. Suppressors hissed. 2 of El Silencio's men dropped instantly. The third didn't have time to shout before a blade flashed across his throat. Mateo froze. The newcomer closest to him lifted her visor. A woman, early 40s, sharp features, eyes like polished onyx. Calm, calculating, deadly. "Mateo Cruz?" she asked. He swallowed. "Yes. You and your family are coming with me." Elena shook her head frantically. "Who are you?" "Someone who's been trying to save you for the last 10 years. Mateo stared, confusion turning to nausea. Save us? From what? The woman stepped closer, lowering her weapon. From your father's war. Mateo's breath caught. My father died when I was 7. No, the woman said quietly. He disappeared. And the things he did before that disappearance are finally catching up. Mateo felt the ground tilt beneath him. His father, gone for decades, a ghost in his own childhood. He'd thought the pain had calcified into something dull and distant, but now it cracked open like a wound struck fresh. What do you want from us? He whispered. To keep you alive, she said. But if we don't leave in the next 30 seconds, that becomes impossible. Gunfire erupted behind them. Shouts. The soldiers of El Silencio regrouping. Mateo grabbed Elena and Lucy, lifting them to their feet. We're coming. The woman nodded, turning toward a side exit. Move! And they ran, through the shredded remains of the celebration, past fallen banners and splintered pillars, through the smoke-thickened air. Lucy clung to Mateo's shirt, sobbing. Elena limped beside him, her breathing sharp and shallow. Behind them, the city descended into chaos. Ahead of them awaited the truth Mateo had spent his entire life not knowing. One soaked in cartel blood, buried secrets, and a father who might not have been the man he remembered. But he kept moving, because there was no going back now. They exited the palace grounds through a collapsed service tunnel, the concrete walls trembling with every distant explosion. The air tasted of dust and gunpowder, and the emergency lights flickered in a sick rhythm overhead. The woman led the way with the kind of controlled urgency that came from years of navigating war zones. What's your name? Mateo asked between breaths, holding Lucy against his chest as they jogged. Valeria, she said without looking back. Former intelligence. Now freelance. Freelance, Elena echoed, half limping. As in mercenary? As in, Valeria said sharply. The only person left who still gives a damn whether your family lives through the night. They turned at a set of rust-eaten pipes and reached a ladder leading up to a steel hatch. Valeria climbed first, pushed the hatch open a crack, scanned for danger, then waved them up. Mateo lifted Lucy through the opening before climbing out, then helped Elena. They emerged into an alley behind the old textile district, deserted except for a burned-out delivery truck and a line of laundry swaying like surrender flags. Far away, sirens wailed across the city. Valeria pointed to a black SUV parked at the far end of the alley. Inside, quickly. Mateo hesitated. Before we get in, I need to know why El Silencio wants us. Valeria's jaw flexed. Because of your father. You keep saying that, Mateo snapped. Fear sharpened into anger. But my father wasn't. Your father, Valeria cut in, stepping closer, was one of the original architects of El Silencio's empire. Elena's hand tightened around Mateo's. Lucy let out a small, frightened gasp. Mateo shook his head slowly. No, my father was a teacher. He worked at the local school. That's the cover story your mother raised you with, Valeria said quietly. A lie she told to protect you. Mateo's breath came faster. He looked at Elena, who looked back helplessly. She knew as little as he did. My father was a criminal, he whispered. Valeria didn't flinch. Not just a criminal. One of the founding strategists. A ghost handler. The man who wrote the original communication codes that made the cartel impossible to infiltrate. He disappeared when you were 7 because he tried to dismantle what he created. Mateo felt like he'd been punched in the chest. His vision blurred and came back in sharp, painful fragments. Memories flashed. His father's late-night phone calls. The quiet way he'd closed the door. The coded phrases Mateo hadn't understood as a child. The fear in his mother's eyes every time the phone rang. He left to destroy them? Mateo asked. Valeria nodded. He stole the master cipher, the key that could unravel the entire organization. Without it, El Silencio became fragmented, mutated, more violent, more paranoid. And now they think I have it? Mateo said, horrified. No, Valeria said. They think your father entrusted you with something. Something buried, hidden, encrypted. Something only his bloodline can open. Mateo felt his pulse hammering in his skull. I don't know anything. I have nothing. I believe you, Valeria said. But they don't. And if they get their hands on you, or worse, your daughter, they will tear through every layer of your past until they find what they're looking for. A gust of wind swept through the alley, carrying the distant sound of gunfire. Valeria pointed at the SUV again. Inside. We don't have time. This time Mateo obeyed without hesitation. He helped Elena and Lucy into the back seat, then climbed into the front beside Valeria. As soon as the doors shut, she hit the ignition. The engine roared, and they sped out of the alley, turning sharply into the narrow streets. Where are we going? Mateo asked. To someone who can explain more than I can, Valeria replied. Someone your father trusted. Mateo swallowed. My father trusted almost no one. That's why this person is still alive, Valeria said. She accelerated onto the main road, weaving through abandoned market stalls and overturned crates. Smoke rose in plumes from the downtown district, staining the sky. Who is this person? Elena asked, her voice trembling. Valeria hesitated only a moment. Your father's partner, she said. The woman who helped him defect. The woman he loved before he disappeared. Mateo stared at her. My father had a partner? Valeria gave him a grim, sidelong glance. Yes, and she's the reason you're all still alive. The SUV sped through the burning city, chasing a truth Mateo wasn't sure he was ready to face. One that would drag him deeper into a world where family, loyalty, and betrayal were written in blood. The SUV raced deeper into the industrial outskirts of the city, where the streets grew wider and the buildings taller, each one shadowed by decades of corruption and fear. Valeria stayed laser-focused on the road, eyes flicking to the mirrors every few seconds. Mateo could feel a tremor in the vehicle, subtle but constant, like the city itself was shivering. Far behind them, the sound of engines grew louder. They're tracking us, Elena whispered, peering through the rear window. No, Valeria said. They're sweeping the district. They don't know which car we're in yet. Mateo glanced at her. Yet, she didn't answer. The SUV swerved onto an overpass, the concrete vibrating from distant blasts echoing through the city. Smoke curled in long ribbons toward the horizon. The world had shifted in a matter of hours, from ordinary to catastrophic, from familiar to haunted. Lucy clung to Elena, her small fingers gripping the fabric of her mother's blouse. Are they going to hurt us? She asked softly, voice barely audible. Mateo looked back at her. His daughter, 8 years old, with a heart big enough for the world, should never have had to ask a question like that. No, he said firmly. Not while I'm here. To be continued.